When I say The Lion King, you will probably think about its movies, animated shows, or maybe even the games. But another media that The Lion King used to be consistently a part of are comics, that I am going to cover in this video. But before I start, I should mention a few things. Disney villain Scar and wild schemes and catastrophes will get their own individual videos, and the comics that are only about Timon and Pumbaa or the Lion Guard will get their own video, because I divide the Lion King franchise into 3 sub-series. 1. The Lion King, 2. Timon and Pumbaa, and 3. The Lion Guard. Okay, now let's start. The Lion King graphic novel. The first Lion King comic is the 1994 movie in comic format. Hakuna Matata. This one takes place before adult Simba became a king. Simba is chasing Timon and Pumbaa as a gang, but Timon gets hit by a tree. Then Timon shouts at Pumbaa because of it. Simba says that his shout was too loud, but Timon says that the only other animals that live here are the bugs that they are going to eat, not knowing that someone is hiding in the bushes. That someone turns out to be a monkey. He goes to his gorilla friends and tells them that the loud sound that they heard didn't come from a monster. It came from a weird little animal alongside a warthog and a lion. The leader of the gorillas says that if they deal with the others first, dealing with Timon is easy. I guess they want to have revenge or something, I don't know. At night, Simba gets thirsty and goes for a drink, but he gets trapped by the gorillas. Pumbaa comes and makes the gorillas angry, so they follow him, but the monkey stays. Timon throws a rock at the monkey and knocks him out. Then he unties Simba. When the gorillas reach Pumbaa, they argue about who should beat him, which leads to the gorillas fighting each other. When the leader beats up the other 2 gorillas, Simba comes and defeats him and tells them to never come back again. The Great Festival of the Sun. Rafiki tells Mufasa and Simba that the longest day of the year is coming, which means it is time for a celebration. And Mufasa tells Simba to do the preparation so that he would be ready for when he becomes king, and tells Zazu to keep an eye on his son. Scar hears about it and plans to ruin it, so he tells the hyenas to destroy the place. When they ask him how, Scar takes them to a river. He tells them to push the boulders into the river to change its direction, and the hyenas do as they are told. Scar's plan works and the celebration site is in water now. Scar comes to Simba and pretends that he had nothing to do with the disaster. He tells Simba that if he can't do such a simple task, he is not suitable for being a king, and then he leaves. Simba is having self-doubt, but Rafiki comes to boost Simba's confidence. Then Simba comes up with a solution. He kinda turns the site into a water park, which makes the animals say that it is the best celebration ever. Scar gets mad and throws a tantrum and falls in the water, but he tells everyone that he is just taking a bath. The Lion's King. This one is a parody hosted by The Simpsons. They watch a joke version of the movie and point out how stupid it is. Finding food. Timon tells Simba that Pumbaa was supposed to find some bugs to eat, but he is nowhere to be found. Simba tells Timon that he will find food instead. But then Simba hears Pumbaa's cry for help. He follows his voice and realizes that Pumbaa is stuck in quicksand. He uses a stick to save him. Then they go to Timon to tell what has happened, but Timon is too angry to listen to them, so he walks away to find bugs himself. He searches a hole in a tree, but it's full of bees, and they attack him. While the bees are busy, Pumbaa sneaks in and takes honey from the tree. When Timon escapes, they celebrate with honey as dinner. The funny monkey. Simba is wandering in the jungle when he hears monkeys laughing. They were making fun of a monkey with a very long tail. Simba also laughs at the long-tailed monkey, and so that monkey runs away. Later, Simba tells his father about it, and Mufasa says that Simba didn't do a good thing. So Simba asks the other monkeys where the long-tailed monkey is, so that he can apologize to him. But on the way, Simba falls into a river. The long-tailed monkey comes and saves Simba. Later, Mufasa thanks that monkey for saving Simba, and Simba apologizes. And so do the other monkeys. And then they tell him that they wish they had a long tail too. The Talking Tree. Rafiki is telling Simba the story of a talking tree. Scar was hiding behind a rock and heard about it, so he came up with a plan. Scar tells Shenzi to hide in that tree to trick Simba. When Simba and Rafiki reach that tree, Shenzi as the tree tells Simba that his father is in danger in the Hyena Valley and Simba must rescue him alone. Simba does as he is told. When he reaches the valley, he sees Bonsai and Ed, who can talk for some reason. Simba manages to save himself and realizes that Shenzi was in that tree. So Rafiki throws a honeycomb in that tree, and because of that, Shenzi runs away. Simba and the Sad Elephant. Simba and Nala are playing chase when an elephant pours water on them. The elephant says his name is Tombo and his herd has drove him out because he always pours water on everyone and can't help himself with that. Simba tries to convince the leader of the herd to bring Tombo back, but the leader says he wouldn't do that unless Tombo learns to behave himself. Later, lightning strikes and starts a fire, but the jungle is saved thanks to Tombo, so he is welcomed back to his herd. Knight in Shining Armor. In this one, two monkeys have stolen an egg from a pair of ostriches. So Simba saves the egg from the monkeys and gives it back to the ostriches. Great Little Prince. Rafiki tells Simba that he is going to be a king and that he is special, which makes Simba so proud that he thinks he is invincible and fearless. Then he starts doing dangerous stuff like climbing giant rocks and trees, and swimming in the river. But it leads to Simba reaching a desert. When he can't walk anymore because of hunger, thirst, and exhaustion, his father finds him and saves him, and Simba learns his lesson. The Disguised Zebra. After Simba and Nala play in the mud, their parents scold them for how dirty they are and tell them to wash themselves. After they take a bath, they see a crying little zebra. The zebra says her name is Zara, and the other zebras are over the mountains, but she can't go back because the hyenas will eat her because they love zebras. Simba suggests Nala to cover Zara's body with mud so that she wouldn't look like a zebra, and she can be safe from the hyenas. Simba's plan works and Zara reaches her mother, but Simba and Nala get grounded because they were again covered in mud and they couldn't tell what happened. Completely safe. Simba and Nala are bored because they are not allowed to do anything fun, because their mothers say it's too dangerous. Srabi suggests them to play something safe. She tells them to use a fruit as a ball to play. and they do it, but when the ball gets trapped on a log in the river, Simba tries to catch it, but he gets attacked by a crocodile, then falls down to the waterfall, then gets caught by an eagle, then falls in the river again, then has to run through thorns, and then he gets followed by bees. Yeah, totally safe. At the last second, Simba is trying to catch a butterfly when he meets a mole named Malo, who really likes to dig. He digs the floor and makes the shape of a head of an elephant. Then Simba asks him to dig a big hole. Then asks him to dig as long of a tunnel as he can, which leads to him digging into the river. So Simba saves him. Later, Simba accidentally sprained his paw and got trapped in a stampede, but he's saved thanks to Malo. The birthday present. It's Rafiki's birthday, so Simba asks him what he wants as a birthday gift. So Rafiki asks for a special fruit. When he reaches the tree, he sees a baby rhino trapped in the mud. Simba saves him, and in return the rhino helps him to get the fruit from the tree. A Heroic Dirty Cub. Srabi forces Simba to take a shower. When Simba asks why, Srabi says because he always gets dirty while he plays. Simba asks Srabi if that means he doesn't need to take a shower if he doesn't get dirty while playing. Srabi answers yes. So the next day, Simba's friend play in the mud while he just watches because he doesn't want to get dirty. Later, he is taking a walk with Nala when they see a young giraffe stuck in a hole. Simba tells Nala if they pour soil in the hole, the giraffe can eventually get out. So they do it. The giraffe is saved, but Simba is dirty now. But this time he willingly takes a shower. The white stuff. Simba asks Rafiki what are those white stuff at top of the mountains. Rafiki says even he doesn't know because nobody has ever climbed to the top of a mountain. Simba decides to climb the mountain to show his worth. When he tries to do that, a landslide happens. Then an eagle picks him up. After a little bit of struggling, he sets free and he lands safely on top of a ram. Thanks to the ram, he reaches the top of the mountain, full of snow. He uses a skull to bring some of the white stuff to the Pride Lands. But when he reaches home, the snow has obviously turned into water, so no one believes him. But Simba is still happy because at least he proved to himself that he can do it. Zazu and the refresher course. Scar realizes that one of the reasons that Mufasa is a good king is the advices that Zazu gives him. So he comes up with a plan to get rid of him. He tells Zazu that Mufasa wants to replace him, and if he wants to avoid that, he should go around Mufasa's kingdom to increase his knowledge without telling Mufasa about it. And Zazu does as he is told. While Zazu is learning from the elephants, Ed, who can again talk for some reason, disguises himself as a zebra so that Zazu would try to talk to him. Mufasa can't find Zazu, but he heard from the monkeys that he was with Scar. So Mufasa forces Scar to tell him that Zazu is with the hyenas. Then Mufasa saves Zazu. On his own paws. Simba wants to go to the river alone, but Mufasa says it's dangerous. When Simba begs him, he tells he can go there but as long as Srabi is with him. But Simba runs too fast for Srabi to keep up. That's when a gorilla catches Simba by the tail. He throws Simba on a very small island in the middle of a river. Simba jumps on a log to save himself from the crocodiles, but that log goes to a tunnel full of bats. Then it falls down a waterfall. Simba later wakes up in a desert, but he will eventually find his way back to home. Small giants. Simba decides to annoy some ants, which leads to Mufasa scolding him. He tells him that he should respect all the creatures of the circle of life, and then he said that ants can lift 10 times of their own weight. And if ants were as big as the lions, they would be the ones in charge. Later, Simba sees some giant ants, so he runs away and tells his father about it. Then everyone runs away from the ants. When Simba gets tired, one of those ants tries to attack him. That's when Simba wakes up. Of course it was all a dream. Then Simba apologizes to the ants. The giant eagle. When Simba comes home late, he comes up with a lie. He tells his parents that the reason that he is late was a giant eagle that was trying to hunt him. Later, Simba encounters a giant eagle for real this time, and he uses multiple tactics to escape. When he is late, he tells about the giant eagle, but this time they won't believe it. Let's get out. Simba is bored with his life, so he tells his parents that he is running away and won't come back. And his parents let him do that. They say he will be back before it's dark. So Simba runs away, but a lot of bad things happens, and he comes back to home. And Mufasa tells him that all this time Zazu was keeping an eye on him. And he also says that he did the same thing when he was at Simba's age. Simba and the Flower of Courage. Simba has been afraid of other animals lately. So Mufasa pretends that he is poisoned and Simba must retrieve a special flower to save him. On his journey, Simba becomes brave. When he reaches the flower, his father shows up and tells him that it was all a plan to make him braver. Simba and the Snake. Nala has become friends with a snake and is playing with her. Later, Scar tells Simba that Mufasa was bossing around everyone when he was a cub and Simba should do the same if he wants respect from his people. Later, Simba demands Nala to race him all the way to the hills. She disagrees at first, but when Simba calls her a coward, she accepts it. Later, hyenas try to attack them, but they were lucky. After that, a gorilla tries to attack them. Meanwhile, Mufasa gets informed that the kids haven't come back yet. Later, Mufasa overhears Scar scolding the hyenas about letting Simba escape, and Mufasa angrily asks where Simba and Nala are. Mufasa finds Simba and Nala. They have escaped from the gorilla, but now vultures are attacking them. Mufasa comes to the rescue. Later, Simba loses a lot of confidence because of his failures. So Nala comes up with a plan. Her snake friend pretends to attack her and their mothers, and they pretend to be in danger. So Simba comes and saves them, and this would rebuild his confidence. The orphaned baby birds. Mufasa is telling a group of cubs about the great spirit that is watching over everyone. A cub named Tojo says that the great spirit isn't looking over him because he has sprained his leg. Later, Simba finds a nest full of eggs. The eggs hatch at that exact time, and then Zazu shows up. He tells Simba now that the hatchlings saw Simba first. It means he is their mother now. Then Zazu brings some worms for the birds and tells Simba to feed them, which disgusts him, but he can't refuse. He does this for a few days until the birds are old enough to follow him everywhere he goes. Later, Simba tries to teach them how to fly, which obviously had a disastrous outcome. Later, Tojo makes artificial wings to teach the birds, and it works. The next few days, Tojo spends time with the birds and bonds with them, showing the great spirit had risen in Tojo's injury after all. Dangerous shadows. Mufasa and Simba are taking a nap when an eagle attacks them. Mufasa defeats the eagle and tells Simba that he realized the eagle was trying to attack by looking at the eagle's shadow. So Simba tries to use this trick as well. Later, he is walking alongside Nala and is telling her about this shadow technique. A shadow of a tree looks like an antelope, so they run away, not knowing that they luckily ran away from a snake. Then a situation like this happens a few more times until they go home. At night, Simba thanks Mufasa for his lesson. Then he sees shadows of two snakes, but Srabi tells him that it is Nala and her mother's shadow. A Kinglike Hair-do. Simon, Simba's monkey friend, is showing off his hairstyle, and Simba tells him that one day he will have a mane. Simon says that lions shouldn't be king because that mane would slow them down, and then he shows off his speed. Simba says that a king needs to be calm and decide correctly and doesn't need a high speed. Then he hears a cry for help, but Simon tries to ignore it. The voice came from a lemur who was trapped in a river. Simba helps the lemur, but Simon is not willing to help. Later, Simba and Simon encounter a flock of flamingos. Simon scares them off, but when Simba sees an injured flamingo, he tells them to come back and nobody is trying to hurt them. Later, Simba is crossing a bridge, but the bridge breaks down and Simba falls into a river, but that lemur and the flamingos save him. Simba, Zazu and the fight against nostalgia. Timon has gone to the land of meerkats alone, so Pumbaa is sad. Then Zazu shows up and brings Simba back to home. Yes, it isn't following the lore correctly. Later, Simba and Nala play a prank on Zazu, and after that, they try to make Pumbaa laugh. When they succeed, Timon shows up. An unusual choir. Simba's aunt and uncle, I assume Srabi's sister and her husband, have twins. Everyone is excited to see Simba's newborn cousins, but Simba himself is annoyed by how much they are crying. When Srabi tells Simba that he used to cry a lot as well, Simba decides to leave, but Mufasa stops him and tells him to put together a choir as a celebration. At night, Simba goes somewhere away from his baby cousins so that he could think in a quiet place. He falls asleep, but he is waken up by a few frogs and then gets scared by an owl. After talking with them, they agree to help. The next night, Simba shows up with his choir of an owl and 3 frogs. They sing alongside Nala and it makes a perfect lullaby for Simba's baby cousins to sleep to. Little Know-It-All. Okay, I think this one is more of a joke than an actual story. Simba is on a journey with Rafiki, and on the way Rafiki makes this journey a nightmare for Simba. When they get back to home, Rafiki and Mufasa tell Simba that today's lesson was that he should enjoy every journey. Birds of a Feather. This is one of the only 2 comics that are about the Lion King 2. It isn't anything special though. Kiara gets kidnapped and Timon and Pumbaa save her. Save Nala. A bunch of gorillas are trying to kidnap Simba for ransom, but he hides behind a rock. When he escapes them, a thunder strikes his tail. Simba goes to his mother and tells her to take him into the cave. Simba is traumatized by today's events. Later, Serafino asks Serabi if she has seen Nala. Serabi replies she did, but that was hours ago. So Simba wonders if something has happened to her. And so Simba decides to swallow his fears and go search for her. He realizes that the gorillas have kidnapped Nala, and so he tries to help her. When he reaches the gorillas, they are horrified because they thought Simba died when they were chasing him, and now his ghost has come to revenge, so they run away from him. Simba takes Nala back to home, and she tells about his bravery to their parents. The Great Drought. It is drought season, and seemingly because of that, the river has been dried, and if it doesn't rain anytime soon, they have to leave Pride Lands. Later, Simba realizes that some gorillas have made a dam, and that's why the river is dried out. Simba comes up with a plan to breach the dam without being seen, and he succeeds and saves the Pride Lands. Laugh again. Mufasa is alone and he is trying to take a nap, but it gets interrupted by Simon. He is falling down and Mufasa saves him, and in return he gets help from Simon to teach Simba about royal duties. A shooting star. Mufasa and Simba are stargazing when they see a shooting star. When Simba asks Mufasa what a shooting star is, Mufasa tells him that they are stars that spread important news. Then he tells Simba to go to sleep. When Simba is gone, Mufasa asks Rafiki if it is a smart thing to tell fairy tales to kids, which Rafiki answers is harmless. But Simba was listening to them, and the next day he tries to catch a shooting star to prove that it is not a fairy tale. And because of that, some cubs make fun of him. When Simba wants to fight with them, Nala stops him. The next day he follows a shooting star until he reaches a cave at top of a waterfall. And turned out that the fairy tale about the shooting stars were actually real. Rafiki, who was following him, also sees it and tells others about it and the bravery of Simba. The Flying Lion. A sudden storm comes up, so Simba and Nala escape to a cave. Eventually the storm ends, so they go to a lake. When they see a few birds, Nala says it's neat that they can fly, but Simba says that he could also fly if he wanted to. So he tries to make wings out of leaves. It doesn't work. When Simba is laughed at, he takes a walk to the mountain alone. But he sees the hyenas, so he jumps down on a tree to hide. So Zazu and his friends fly him back to home. Never friends again. Simba pours mud on Nala during playing, so Nala goes away from him. Later, Simba tries to cheer him up by trapping her. So this time Nala says they are not friends anymore. Later, Serabi suggests Simba to give Nala a flower to make up to her, which gets Simba into trouble. Then he tries to give her a fruit so that she could use it as a toy, but that fruit turns out to be a honeycomb, so more trouble. Then he tries to give her a fish, but he again fails. But this time Nala was watching him and it made her laugh. When Simba tells Nala that he was trying to give her something that she likes, Nala said that she liked to look at the sunset. So they do it and become friends again. A Royal Fib. Zazu is teaching Simba, but Simba is not willing to learn. So he tells Zazu that he is a prince, so he does not have to listen to him. Mufasa was listening to the whole conversation, so in order to make Simba listen, he comes and tells Simba that Zazu is also a king from a land far away, but his evil uncle dethroned him. A very forced overshadowing if you ask me. Later, when Simba is alone, he thinks that his father has made it up. So in order to make sure, he calls two birds that were flying over him and asks them about it, and they agree to prank Zazu. The birds go to Zazu and say that his evil uncle has been chased away and the throne is waiting for him. Zazu tells Mufasa about it, and they are both confused about this made-up land to be real. So Mufasa tells Zazu to find this made-up land to clear things up. Later, Mufasa finds out that it was all Simba's plan, so he scolds him. 2 weeks later, Zazu comes back and Simba apologizes to him. A cheeky bird. Nala tells Simba that she has something funny to show, which is a few young birds failing to learn how to fly. When one of them learns to fly, it starts annoying Simba. A little later, the bird does it a few more times, and each time it happens, Simba tries to catch it but fails and ends up hurting himself. The last time, he falls into a deep hole, so the bird tells Nala about it, and Nala tells Mufasa about it, and Mufasa saves Simba. The Lion King to Simba's Pride. This is the other comic that is about the Lion King too, and it is just that movie as a comic. Hakuna Matata. This one is a gag comic, including 6 very short stories. A gift from the heaven. Mufasa tells Simba that the stars are the great kings of the past who are looking over them all the time. The next day, a hungry, skinny lion is walking around. A meteor hits him, but he survives. Simba saw the meteor falling, so he followed it. Simba reached the place the meteor hit and saw the skinny lion. And Simba thought that he is one of the great kings of the past who has fallen down from the sky. And the lion runs with it because Simba brings him food. He tells Simba that he is on a secret mission and Simba shouldn't tell anybody about it. Mufasa and Zazu realize Simba is hiding something, but they pretend to believe his lies. Later, they realize what has happened, but they don't do anything so that Simba wouldn't be heartbroken. Later, Zazu sees Simba being attacked by a crocodile. So, he tells Mufasa, but when they reach Simba, he had already been saved. Turns out the skinny lion saved Simba and told him that his mission is done and he left the Pride Lands. Dream Child. Simba and Nala take a nap, but Simba was on a log next to a river, and the river slowly takes the log with itself, but Simba is still asleep. This one is also a joke comic. The entire time, Simba is sleeping in danger, and sometimes by accident and sometimes by other animals he is saved. At the end, some monkeys bring back Simba next to Nala, and then they wake up, not realizing the stuff that happened when they were asleep. Teacher in danger. Simba is again bored with Zazu's lessons, so Simba makes Zazu go away. Later, a bunch of big birds are bullying Zazu, so Simba and Nala disguise themselves as a monster to scare those birds away. Whoever lies 3 times. Mufasa tells Simba and Nala to organize a party for all the cubs in the Pride Lands. Simba doesn't like doing this, so each day he comes up with a lie and avoids doing stuff, so Nala has to do everything. Nala and Zazu realize that Simba is lying. Zazu wants to tell Mufasa about it, but Nala stops it because she has a plan. When the day of party arrives, Nala tells everyone that Simba was a great help, even though he has gone through a lot lately, which makes Simba feel guilty. So when the party ends, Simba tells Nala to rest while he does all the cleaning. The Baboon Problem. Rafiki's cousin, Biba, has come to Pride Lands. He is clumsy, which leads to him accidentally hurt Mufasa and Rafiki, but they forgive him and let him stay for a while. Later, Rafiki tells his frustrations to Mufasa because Biba always brings trouble. Their conversation is interrupted when Biba sits on an ant nest and falls into water. Later, Biba hangs from a branch and falls down. Then he sits on Pride Rock and falls on Mufasa. Later, Biba performs a rain dance, and that leads to a storm. Simba and Nala are nowhere to be found, so Biba searches and finds them in trouble, and calls the rest, and they together save Simba and Nala. The Prince from the Ice. Simba saves a penguin from the river. Simba has never seen a penguin before, and the penguin, whose name is Azo, has never been there, so they are both weirded out. Later, Simba shows Azo the Pride Lands, but Azo says that his lands are better, and he was drove here by accident. That's when an eagle picks him up and brings him back. Good behavior. Mufasa and Trabi go on a journey, and Zazu has to babysit Simba and Nala. And of course the kids tire him for 2 days until Mufasa and Trabi come back. Just Lying Around. It's an April's Fool comic in which Timon and Pumbaa trick King Simba to hang out with them. Simba Size It. A full-grown Simba plays with Timon and Pumbaa, chasing them, and suddenly gets stuck in between 2 rocks. While stuck, he falls asleep and dreams that he becomes a giant. Timon and Pumbaa wake him up, and Simba suggests that he is too big to play with them. But Timon replies that they just took a different route than usual. Simba eventually gets out of the tight spots and starts chasing and playing with them again. The Family Tree. Simba gets stuck in a tree and a rhino saves him, and in return he is allowed to be in the lion's den. Simba's new brother. Simba and Nala are playing when a cub named Malka shows up. The lionesses say that they don't know him, so he probably has lost his pride. Nala is on top of Simba. Malka is impressed by Nala and makes fun of Simba for losing to a girl. Malka then sees the hyenas and scared them off. Mufasa and Srabi are so impressed that they want to adopt Malka, which will make him Simba's brother. Simba does not want this, so he tries to get rid of him. Simba takes Malka to a maze-like place and tells him that they are playing hide and seek. When Simba leaves Malka alone, Malka freaks out, so Simba feels guilty and runs back to him. When Simba asks what happened, Malka said that he was scared. He tells Simba that he just pretends to be a brave and clever boy. He said that he has lost his original pride, and each time he joins a new pride, he gets lost again. And now he really misses his mother. Simba is now bringing Malka back to Pride Rock, but on the way, the hyenas show up. They escape from the hyenas and reach Pride Rock. Turns out that Zazu has found Malka's mother. Malka says his goodbyes and goes back to his pride with his mother. A great team. Simba began to challenge other young animals to competitions in which he held an unfair advantage. Together, the young animals informed Simba that they would only compete again if they could make the rules. After a few more rounds and an encounter with the hyenas, Simba learns to respect the other animals and play fair. Snakes in Paradise. Recently, Nala has been spending time with a female cub named Tama more than Simba, which makes Simba feel jealous, so he follows them. They go through some rocks and reach a secret valley, full of flowers and butterflies, which seems so girlish to Simba that it makes him sleep out of boredom. So that's why Nala didn't want to show it to Simba. When Simba wakes up, he realizes that he is surrounded by snakes. So he yells for help and Nala and Tama come to rescue. Mokele Mbembe. Rafiki and Simba are on a journey and Rafiki is telling the story of a monster to Simba. They reach other baboons and Simba talks about that monster to them. They try to set a trap to catch that monster. Later, Simba falls into a river, but he is saved by that trap. Heartbreaker Zazu. Zazu is trying to teach Simba and Nala, but he is distracted by a female hornbill. At first, they tease Zazu, but then they try to help him, which didn't work. After a few more failures, turned out that female hornbill knew who Zazu is and she already liked him for who he is. Elephant Walk. Simba runs away from Zazu and meets two young elephants who has lost their hair. Simba wants to help them. On the way, crocodiles attack them and Mufasa saves them. Roar. Okay, this one is really goofy. Scar is roaring to show his strength and Timon tells Cub Simba that it's annoying. Yes, Timon is living with Cub Simba on Pride Rock in this one. Timon goes to Scar and pretends to roar, while Simba roars in a ravine to make a loud sound, which makes Scar think Timon can really roar loud, and because of that he runs away. Let's just say it's a joke and completely ignore that it happened, shall we? Spots and Stripes. Zazu is teaching Simba and Simba is bored. It's getting tedious at this point. Simba says sometimes he doesn't want to be the future king and sometimes he doesn't even want to be a lion. So he asks Babu, the baboon, one of Rafiki's students, to draw black stripes on him to make him look like a zebra. But after spending time with the zebras, Simba realizes that the life of zebras are boring. Then Nala comes with black dots on her body that makes her look like a cheetah and scares the zebras off. Then real cheetahs come and mistake Simba for a zebra at first, but soon they realize that they made a mistake. But they want to attack them anyway because they made them lose their lunch. But the zebras save them. You never stop learning. Simba doesn't want Zazu to teach him. What's new? Simba tells Zazu that a hornbill can't teach anything that is useful to a lion. Then a few animals ask Simba for help. Some elephants don't let them have water. Simba tries a few ways but it doesn't work. Then Zazu scares the elephants off with a few mice. Simba realizes that Zazu's lessons are in fact useful. Landslide. When Simba boasts to Timon and Pumbaa about being the future king, they laugh at him and insist that he doesn't scare them. So Simba climbs a rock pile to try and pounce on them from the above. However, he slips on the rocks and joins a small rock slide that rolls onto Timon and Pumbaa below. Simba asks them if they're afraid of the future king now, but Timon laughs and says We're only afraid of the Landslide King. Monkey magic. Simba tells a rhino and a zebra that Rafiki can see the future. And so does Simba because he has learned a few things from Rafiki. The rhino doesn't believe it, but the zebra does. So Simba and the rhino try to prank him. Later, Simba tells the zebra that in a few seconds, a giant rock will fall into a ravine, while from the above, the rhino pushes that rock and makes it fall. But the rock almost fell on Simba and made him fall in the ravine, where the hyenas are. Rafiki realizes it and asks help from his baboon friends, and they save Simba. Alarm clock. Pumbaa and Simba are sleeping. Timon wants to wake them up because it's their turn to find food, but they won't wake up. So Timon takes a long walk to the waterhole, but he ends up scaring a little elephant, so its father chases Timon. When Timon escapes, he's so tired that he passes out. That's when Simba and Pumbaa wake up and make fun of him for sleeping. So here we are now. Overall, what do I think about them? They are good. Not great, but still good enough. Should you go out of your way to read them? No, but it won't hurt. Reading these comics were a charming experience for me. Not all of them are good. Some of them were just unfunny jokes, and in a few of them Simba was a jerk, but I enjoyed reading most of them. Most of these stories show that Simba, even as a kid, was mostly a kind, smart, and helpful person. It shows that even from the beginning, he was worthy of the throne. If you know someone who thinks Simba is a jerk, showing most of these comics will probably change their mind.